It's okay. Good afternoon. It's 1 o'clock and I have the thumbs up to get started. We acknowledge that the land we stand upon today is the traditional territory of the Attawandaron, Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Lenape peoples, who have long-standing relationships to the land, water, and region of southwestern Ontario. The local First Nation communities of this area include the Chippewa of the Thames First Nation, Oneida Nation of the Thames First Nation, and Munsee Delaware Nation. We acknowledge that the treaties are specific to this area. Treaty 2, McKee Purchase, Treaty 3, Between the Lakes Purchase, Treaty 6, London Township Purchase, Treaty 21, Longwoods Purchase, and Treaty 29, Huron Tract Purchase. We value the significant contributions both in the past and the present and local and regional, First Nations of Turtle Island. We acknowledge historic and ongoing injustices that our Indigenous peoples endure in Canada, and we affirm our commitment to honoring Indigenous voices, nations, and cultures, and to move forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect. I look to Council now. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we can move to the approval of the agenda. The motion is that the agenda be approved as presented. Councillor Smybert and Councillor McMillan, thank you. All in favor? And that is carried. Next, we have the minutes of our last two agendas. The motion before us is that the minutes of the August 13th, 2024 meeting of the County Council and the closed session meeting of County Council be approved as presented, and that the recommendations made by Committee of the Whole as set out in the minutes of the August 13th, 2024 meeting be adopted. A mover, please, and a seconder. Councillor Grantham and Councillor Mayhew, thank you. All in favor? And that is carried. Is there any new business? I don't see any hands. Inquiries? And none there. Are there any notices of motion? And I don't see any of those. Next, we have councillors' comments and other business. Is there anything? Thank you. Councillor Rock, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Through the warden, my congratulations to Councillor Clark for winning the plowing at the Middlesex plowing match. Congratulations to those of us who got 8 out of 9.
Thank you. It was a good day for that event, wasn't it? And I think your record of not plowing is now broken. Is there anyone else? Councillor Mayhew. Okay, thank you. Is anyone else wishing to speak? I don't see any hands then. Next motion we have is that the Committee of the Whole convene at 1:04 p.m. If I could have a mover, please. Councillor Brennan and Councillor Clark, all in favor? And that is carried. Okay, the first item on our agenda today is a presentation by Brenda Slater, who is the account manager, and Ann Haynes, the regional manager from MPAC, are going to give us an update of the state of the nation at MPAC. So when you're ready, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, everyone. My name is Brenda Slater. I am your account manager, and joining me today is Ann Haynes, my regional manager. It's always a pleasure to see everyone in person. The next slide, I'm just sharing an overview of the roles and responsibilities of the property assessment and taxation system. And MPAC is responsible for calculating, capturing, and distributing assessments for all properties and buildings across Ontario. And of course, municipalities determine their requirements. They set the tax rates and collect property taxes to pay for their municipal services. So just sharing as an overview. The next slide speaks to the provincial system review. Last year, the provincial government announced a review of Ontario's property assessment and taxation system, and they committed to deferring the next reassessment until this review is complete. We share the government's interest in ensuring the accuracy, the transparency, and the fairness of property assessments, and we are ready to contribute our assessment expertise and experience to their review. On the next slide, sharing some highlights of the work that MPAC is doing in the absence of a reassessment. We continue to capture new assessment. We provide forecasting and market analysis and trends for our municipalities. And as well, we would process requests for reconsiderations should property owners have a question regarding their assessment. On the next slide, sharing as a reminder, the valuation date for the most recent assessment update, which did take place back in 2017, remains January 1st of 2016. This means that properties that are assessed now continue to be assessed based on the valuation date of January 1, 2016. The next slide, I wanted to share some highlights, overall numbers for the County of Middlesex in comparison to the province of Ontario. In terms of the number of properties, 37,000 properties, and this is as of 2023 year end. So for our 2024 taxation year, last year we captured $465 million worth of new assessment across the County of Middlesex, and the total property value being $18 million. Sharing our insights, earlier this year, we launched a brand new online interactive map, and it's to highlight changes in the housing inventory right across Ontario. And it compares values in 2013 to 2018 to 2023. So property owners, anyone is able to go in and select their area to review the differences in terms of how many individual homes there are, residential homes there are, and the associated assessment values or values. In addition, our newest tool, which I don't have a slide for, it's the Property Pulse dashboard. And this was just launched as well, and it's available for property owners to access through About My Property. The information is updated monthly, and they're able to review recent sales data right across their province and in their own communities. As well, our focus is always about building awareness for property owners, allowing them to have helpful and easy to find resources, easy to understand resources to help them understand the property assessment and taxation system, to learn more about who is MPAC and the work that we do, and as well to be able to find easy information and resources when they need it. We've launched the new first-time homeowners hub, and there's also an associated toolkit. And this has a lot of great information about the work we do and the information for first-time homeowners specifically. And as well, we do have shareable content that you're able to use, municipalities can use on their websites and or on social media, et cetera. So on the next slide, talking a little bit more about supporting our municipalities. Certainly there's been a number of conferences. We attended the AMO conference in London earlier in August, and we shared an update at the conference. We will be attending the OMTRA conference coming up in Aurelia, Municipal Finance Officers Association in Muskoka later in September as well. As I mentioned, also, a number of municipal resources and toolkits have been introduced to help you when you receive inquiries and directing them to where to find the information and where to find the answer. So we have the property assessment and taxation toolkit. It has the video that explains the relationship between property assessment and taxation. There's key messages, frequently asked questions, and as well that shareable content that I mentioned that can be used on your website, social media, et cetera. We have the first-time homeowners hub. We have the school support portal as well, and there's a toolkit available to share that information for individuals that would like to go online and update their school support information. We have a Home Values Matter, which focuses on the new Property Pulse dashboard and the housing inventory as well. And lastly, lots of toolkits. Lastly, we have the About My Property toolkit, and again, sharing all of that new information that's available for property owners. Highlighting, if you're interested in more of the work that we do, at the end of 2023, we shared our partnerships report, our performance report, and our annual report as well. And all of these are available on our website at impact.ca. We invite you to reach out anytime. My contact information is there on the slide, as well as for Anne. And please feel free to reach out anytime if you have questions. And I just wanted to wrap up on the last slide. You may have received an invitation to attend our webinar series. We have a webinar tomorrow, September the 11th at 1 p.m. Impact Property Insights and Meeting the Evolving Needs of Our Partners, a municipal update. And this will be our president, CAO, our vice president and CAOO, and the Vice President of Public Affairs and Customer Relations or Customer Experience. And all of our webinars are recorded and they are all available on impact.ca if you're not able to attend tomorrow afternoon. And that is all the updates that I had to share. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for that presentation. I'll look to council. Are there questions on the presentation? I saw your hand first, Councillor McGuire. I see you, sister.
Thank you for the presentation. I just want to take you back to slide 6, I think it is. Yeah, so that's the property assessment highlights where you give the valuations. So I see on the county of Middlesex, 37,000 properties with 465 million in new assessment, but a total property value of 18 million. And when I look over at the orange side, which is the province of Ontario, it talks about 42 billion in new assessment with over 3 trillion in property value. Is the blue side right, or are the two numbers second and third line reversed?
I think there might be a typo and I certainly apologize. What I will do is I will double check those numbers. I apologize for the county of Middlesex and I will send out updated numbers if that's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Warden. Thank you for the presentation. Every time I hear that, I think, mayors should be in touch with you more often than we are because you are a vast source of information. In regards to, I know the province gives you much of your direction and how you administrate, and the tax assessment freeze, the assessments freeze over COVID was extended by the government, and it does concern mayors to some degree. It has affected our budgetary process, and I believe in the last 8 years, the home improvement industry has been just really going ahead, and a lot of these properties have had improvements made to them, and their value of their homes has significantly gone up. That too is at a freeze. Is that not right?
So thank you for your comments and your questions. So as I mentioned, when we are out assessing new homes and or improvements, they are still based on our January 1st, 2016 valuation date. Yes.
Just a follow up, if I could. At some point, the honeymoon is going to be over. And the property owners are going to have to face a more realistic evaluation. What parameters are in place to comfort that or to avoid sticker shock?
So thank you again for your comments. At this point, we are awaiting the Ministry of Finance to announce when the next assessment update will be, and then as well what our next valuation date will be. And then we would be able to prepare for the next assessment update. So at this point, it's a matter of waiting until the Ministry of Finance makes those announcements.
Go ahead, Bill.
Just Alan's question was about I just want to clarify Alan's question. His question was what mitigating factors are in place once the sticker shock hits. And I'll say my answer and then you tell me if there's anything you want to add to it, Alan. So my answer is that when this has happened before, we were just talking about when this has happened before. In my time in municipal government, it hasn't happened for this many years. It's happened for 1 or 2 years in the past, and there's been sticker shock, as you described before. In those situations, there's two things that municipalities get hit with. They get hit with a big bulk of new assessment, as you've described. Now, that's not the problem because tax rates can adjust that back or down. So you just adjust your tax rate. So because if you didn't adjust your tax rate and you had all this new assessment, all of a sudden you'd have like 70% more revenue than you did the year before. So you can move that macro with the tax rate. That's not the problem. Where you get the phone calls, and you'll get them, I'll get them, MPAC will certainly get them. I wouldn't want that job. That's the customer relations guy up there. Because where you'll get them is where there's been big swings between classes or big swings between individual homeowners where you, as you described, big improvements versus non-improvements. And if they've done it over a period of time and haven't had to pay the piper on that, those big swings individually are what you're going to have to worry about. So, but that is the system that we have, is this assessment system. The macro isn't as challenging to me as the micro, because that's where we'll start hearing all of the complaints.
I'm just going to add one thing to answer the sticker shock as well. So Impact, we're also sharing insights. So Brenda alluded to the Property Pulse dashboard for property owners. When we were at AMO in Ottawa just a few weeks ago, we highlighted our president, CAO, and our vice presidents were there, and we highlighted provincially what the trends have been and what we're looking at by zone. So we had Southwestern Ontario, we had provincial average was 99%, and then, you know, the different property classes and where the shifts are. Until they announce it, as Brenda said, we won't know what it will be, and we're excited when they will announce it to do that work and share that out with you. But we're doing our best to your property owners and your constituents to share with them, this is what the market's doing now. This is where we are today. So we know you're in 2016, but we're trying to help them understand how the market shifted and moved to make sure that they're not that shocked when and if the next assessment update happens and they get that notice from MPAC.
Okay, Councillor Clark.
Yeah, mine's more just a comment towards the impact team. I'm sure you saw in the news this morning or last night, there's a municipality in Quebec that it's one of the poorest municipalities, and they're going through this exact problem right now where people have been given notice that their taxes are going up 370%. And it's not something that they can manage. So hopefully, I know MPAC doesn't have a whole lot of input, but hopefully the province of Ontario will watch what's happening there and perhaps learn some lessons. It's going to be interesting to see what the outcome is.
Is there anyone else? Okay, well then I'd like to thank both of you for coming today and sharing the slides and the information. I guess change is hard. It'll come and we'll deal with it, but I guess uncertainty is harder to deal with. So it's good to have the updates and stay current with what you're doing to mitigate the effects and with information for our public, and we'll see what happens when it shakes out. So thank you so much for coming, and we'll look forward to the next update. All right, then we have a motion before us that the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation presentation be received for information. I have Councillor Grantham moving and Councillor Smybert seconding. All in favor? And opposed? Okay, that is carried. Thank you. Moving on to reports from county officers. The first item up is the 2025 Middlesex County Council and Library Board meeting calendar, and we're going to hear the report from Rebecca Glavin, our Deputy Clerk.
Through you, Warden, this is the 2025 meeting schedule for County Council and the Library Board. The procedural bylaw requires this report to be presented to Council prior to the end of September. And this calendar generally follows the 2024 schedule. We are happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that report. Are there questions? I don't see any hands. In that case, we have a motion that the 2025 Middlesex County Council and Library Board meeting calendar be received for information, and that council adopt the 2025 Middlesex County Council and Library Board meetings calendar, and that the 2025 Middlesex County Council and Library Board meeting calendar be circulated to county councilors and local municipalities. Moved by Councillor Mayhew, seconded by Councillor McMillan. All in favor? And that is carried. The next item we have is a report from Paul Shipway, and it's about the award of a request for proposal for the Integrity Commissioner.
Thank you, Madam Warden. In accordance with the direction of council, Mr. White, our procurement service manager, issued a RFP for the services of Integrity Commissioner, closed meeting investigator, and ombudsman. We had 4 respondents, and staff are recommending to move forward with Eric Burles. There's the added benefit that they provide the same or some of those services for the significant majority of our local municipalities also. If awarded, it would be a 3-year contract that would commence on January 1st, 2025. Staff are happy to answer any questions you may have.
And thank you for that report. I'll look to council then. Questions? I don't see any hands. In that case, we have a motion before us that the bylaw be introduced at the September 2024 council meeting to appoint Eric Burles LLP as the Middlesex County Integrity Commissioner, closed meeting investigator, and ombudsman effective January 1st, 2025. Authorize and approve Middlesex County Integrity Commissioner, closed meeting investigator, and ombudsman agreement with Eric Burles LLP, and authorize the warden and the county clerk to execute the agreement. The mover, Councillor Smybert and McMillan. Thank you. I always did that backward. All in favor? And that is carried. Okay, correspondence and information items. Did I skip one? Sorry. Oh, here he is. 9C3. This is a report from our CAO on the Middlesex County Strategic Plan.
So council members, I've had a conversation with the warden about our strategic priorities for the year. I think it was 2 months ago, maybe time flies. It might have been more than 2 months ago. I gave you that long list of priorities we have before the end of the year, and conversation that Ina and I had was, I said, strategic planning was certainly on that list, but trying to get it completed before the end of the year with the agenda that we have and the amount of time we have left is going to be a challenge. And Ina and I both came to the conclusion that it would be best to try to get everything ready and then this year, and then have the bulk of that work completed early in the next year. And so that conversation also led to trying to priority set around the timing of how we go about it. But to know that, we need to know how you want to do it. And what I mean by that is we have a long history of doing strategic planning here. And we've done it a variety of different ways. We've done it either internally, we've done it with a hybrid, or we've done it completely external. And I just wouldn't mind, Warden, if council had the opportunity now to give you their thoughts on whether we should do it externally or hybrid or internally, because once we know that, then we can go out and get the RFP done. If that's the direction you go, get the RFP done. And if it's not the way you go, then we'll start assigning the responsibilities in here internally so that we get all that work done this fall and then ready to hit the ground running with council, the council of the new term after the new year. So that's really the big question on the table today.
Okay, so who wants to start this off? Councillor Grantham, go ahead.
Thank you, Warden. I'll give you my preference and option. Then I have a question through you for the CAO. Mine is for option B. I think it would be smart to look for a fresh perspective, but along with the expertise of our staff. But through you, this is for Bill. And I'm going to assume that the wording as determined by county council means that it's in collaboration with county council. I haven't done the county strategic plan, so I'm assuming it's in collaboration with the council. It's not all determined by others, for lack of a better word. It's a rather naive question, but I just wanted to.
Yeah, I
Sure.
think those words are intended to, those words are intended to describe the outcomes of the strategic plan. I think that's what those words are referring to. And this is where we would put this in the budget is right under county council. This is your document. These are your strategic priorities. They're definitely not internal ones. They're educated, of course, by a variety of factors, both internal comments and external comments. But ultimately, it's this council that's sitting in a room describing what they want their strategic priorities to be solely with a consultant or with an internal provider. It's definitely not an internal document we create and then give to you. This is the hard work of council to come out with it.
Councillor Clark.
Through the warden to CAO, just for my clarification, are you saying that the work would be done before the end of the year?
So it depends on which process you choose, but what we would try to do is get all the preparation work done. So what I mean by what would happen after the end of the year is likely, setting the meetings with council itself, but all that external work that has to be done before the strategic plan is talked about by council. The prep work would be done this year.
Okay, so then just as a follow-up, so from a budgetary piece, if we went with option B or C, there's enough in that lane, like in that silo to pay for anything?
So you're not talking about outcomes, you're just talking about the process. Yes. Yeah. And then,
Thank you.
Ultimately next year, the goal is whenever you get sitting down with council is you want to have not only priorities, but then the next step is, okay, now that we've established these priorities, what are our KPIs? What's our implementation plan? We don't have time to do all of that work this fall, but you will have that time, in that winter quarter that's coming up. But all of that has to be done as well.
Sorry, one more follow-up. Is it fair to say that what's the capacity internally if we went with option A? Is there capacity?
I think there is. I think that we probably could do, it's been a little while since we've done anything but a hybrid, but I think it's possible. It's, I'd have to really think about it a little bit more, but I definitely think it's possible. That's why it's there. We do have another person on the team than we had last time, and that's Paul's position on that strategic priority stuff. So laying out the framework and doing all that work around it, because the reason why I think it's possible is because it's really not reinventing the wheel so much. There's pieces of this that we've done before, but also much of the information gathering is the same stuff we have to gather for CMSM negotiations. It's the same stuff we have to gather for the strategic plan for library or for MLPS. So there's a lot of overlap. So I think it is possible. I definitely think it's possible.
Okay, thank you. So the answers to all of my questions, I would go with option A.
And I have Councillor Smybert.
Great, thank you. So I see the value in hiring an outside consultant. But I guess my question for the CAO is normally when there's an outside consultant, of course, like the senior leadership team are brought in to be a part of the process, but they're not really they're providing some feedback and some important information to the consultant. So and then my next question was going to be about capacity, because I thought I heard during the budget deliberations that there might not be capacity because staff are busy doing their normal jobs. So so that may not be a question, just more of a comment, I guess, but my preference is option C.
Yeah, so a couple things on that. Yeah, during the budget deliberations, we did we've talked about it a few times about capacity. I mean, I don't know how many times you've used the word too lean with me about how we operate, and I don't disagree. I mean, it is tight. I think that it is possible to do for the reasons that I gave to Sue, but I also agree with you that having that external look is great. And just going back to what you said about the process of senior leadership team with a consultant, my typical style is, yes, everything you said is exactly how it happens, but I would assign somebody in the senior leadership team to work very directly with the consultant, so not all of us are having to meet with the consultant all the time. It's just like Chris is working with Matter on the architect, and he's the lead on there, but he draws us all in whenever it's necessary, or that's the same type of process we'd use here.
Councillor Mayhew.
Thank you, Madam Warden. hiring an external consultant. One of the most enjoyable things I have witnessed on that is that very often they call up each member of council and give them approximately 30 minutes of some very valuable time that they can express their wishes. If option A was taken, I hope the county would have that same blueprint, that they do engage council on a one-to-one basis and get their thoughts, have them recorded and discussed among the decision makers. Option B would perhaps guarantee that more, that an external accountant would reach out to our council. And there are, no one knows the municipality better than the mayors that sit at the table and representing that municipality. And I think that when you're not on that periphery of London, just on the edge of it, there are different decisions in economic development that have to be made because of distance and other factors. So I'm thinking B would be my choice, and I would hope that putting forth to the horseshoe that we want a formal invitation to participate in that process.
And just on that, Warden, I think, Alan, you make a good point, because the conversations you have, if I call you up, Alan, and we have a conversation as part of this process before the strategic plan, there's so many things that you and I already know that I'm not going to ask the question that's less obvious again to you. Whereas if it's a new person, you have a different type of conversation because they're coming into it completely fresh. So you get a little bit different perspective. You're right. And that's what the benefit, I guess, is of the hybrid system, is you get those fresh perspectives and those fresh conversations because there's less familiarity with what people think. You don't assume it, you have to ask it.
Okay, Councillor Grantham.
Thank you, Warden. With your permission, I'd like to make a motion that council accept option B, which is development by a combination of internal staff and external consultants.
Let me just check and make sure. Was there anyone else who wanted to express a view or a thought? Oh, one more question before I call your vote then. Go ahead, Councillor. Okay, a seconder for the motion then. Councillor Brennan?
So my question is, realistically, the reason I suggested A was the timeline. So we're the middle of September, so we're about 100 days out between now and the end of the year. So that's my only consideration, to find somebody externally that's good. They're probably busy. So I don't know. That's the only comment I have.
Yeah, it's definitely strategic planning season, Warden. Like, I know we're going to be talking about the MLPS board as well. This is halfway through the term, is exactly strategic planning season. So your point's well taken.
Okay, in that case, we have a motion on the floor and a mover. I'll call the vote on option B. All in favor? 1, 2. And opposed? And that is carried 6-2. All righty. Moving on to correspondence and information items. Is there anything in here that anyone would like to speak to before we move? I don't see any hands. In that case, the motion before us is the items 91 through 9013 be received for information. Mover, thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Brennan, all in favor? And that is carried. And now we need a mover and a seconder for a motion that the next portion of the meeting be closed at 1:34 p.m. in order to consider personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board in accordance with section 239(2)(b)(k) of the Municipal Act 2001. And a mover, please, Councillor Clark, Councillor McMillan.